Pickens Jackson.
Are you ready? Yes!
Now live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge inside the Bank Plus studio.
You are listening to
Mississippi's #1 sports talk show, The Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. Streaming worldwide live on the Out of Bounds radio app and on your radio at ESPN 105.9. The Zone.
All right, Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, brought to you by the Ribeye, Four Roses Bourbon Old Fashioned. Kessler Prime and the Renaissance. Visit KesslerPrime.com to make a reservation. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Good morning, welcome in. Mike Detillier at 8:30. Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line for you is 601-707-3750. Twitter handle @BoBounds. Driven by the Continental Tires at 49 Tire in Richland, Mississippi. Gus Malzahn's buyout is $21 million and change. He'll get $10+ million by January 12th, and then he'll get $2.6 million July 15th of 2021, and he'll continue to receive that all the way through 2024. On July 15th. Not a bad deal to kind of have unless Gus turns around like coaches are prone to do, even those that, make a lot of money, a la Matt Luke. If another school makes a move, Gus Malzahn could be in play. You're listening to WRKS, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. Like Virginia Tech,
Gus is an attractive hire. He went 2-2 against Saban the last 4 years.
He's very see. He's not Will Muschamp or Jeremy Pruitt or Ed Orgeron. This guy.
He's more Mark Richt.
He is. Again, I don't know why a football coach would have to, and maybe even a football coach doesn't know why Gus couldn't really get the offense going like he wanted to the last 5 or 6 seasons, considering that's his specialty. Gus is he did a good job kind of managing what you have to manage down on the plains, and that's the crazy that Roll Tide Nation drives through, the water and the air and the grass and everything else down there. And that's extremely difficult to manage. I'm pretty sure I was told that Gus did not allow the boosters he didn't answer to them, and he did not allow them to run the show and the shop, which I don't know why Auburn is like that. Maybe it's because of the Alabama shadow. I know that I think we all know that Nick Saban walked into LSU and told them real quick. I mean, he sat down the big boys and said, you're not football coaches. Just because you made a fortune in asphalt or software or construct, whatever, and you won't tell me, how to run my program, and you definitely won't tell me to sign a kid at Mandeville or Lafayette or Shreveport. We're going to do what we want to do. I'm going to call the shots A to Z. He did the same thing when Mal Moore, the late Mal Moore, hired him. Mal Moore was the AD at Bama. And when he hired him, from the Miami Dolphins. So, Dan Mullen doesn't allow anybody to run his program. I mean, there are certain coaches, but in fact, there is strong discussion down in Baton Rouge that Ed's allowing he's from there, okay? Mm-hmm. He knows everybody. He grew up loving LSU. He played there for about a month before quitting and going home, and he called that, a terrible mistake. But he ended up landing his dream job, as we all know, a couple of years ago at LSU. But there's a lot of chatter that Orgeron is letting, probably dining with too many alums. And
you got to have a victory tour, Bo. He wanted. See, that's the problem.
And then people, you just have to have blinders on, and you have to run the program, even if you want to play golf or go out to dinner or whatever it is.
But
with
isn't that
certain
the
influential boosters?
Isn't that the difference between Urban, Saban, Dabo, and everyone? Look, I'll throw a great coach in there, Spurrier. Spurrier was never put up with I don't think he didn't let people run his program the way Orgeron did. But Spurrier was interested in too many things to be the locked-on dynasty creation coach.
Spurrier was not going to recruit like Nick Saban and Dabo. He did,
or Urban. Yeah.
He could never bring himself to smooch, the left butt cheek of a 17-year-old and the mom and the dad. He's just not interested. And so that's why it's remarkable that Bobby Bowden was the opposite of Spurrier when they were matched up against each other for 12 years while Spurrier was at Florida. Now, you could argue he's top 5 as far as play calling, scheming, game planning, offense, all that.
Don't disagree.
But Spurrier was, he wasn't going to let the boosters pay at the level of, at that time in the 90s, what FSU was doing, what several SEC schools, so on. So it just what he was not going to throw down. He wouldn't have put up with a third-party flesh peddler or a booster that wanted to hang out.
But that's the difference between those 3 guys that we mentioned and everyone else is they're able to somehow mitigate the waters of high-level recruiting and yet not losing control of the program.
True.
That's the
right.
difference.
Saban allows, obviously, boosters to take care of things, but that doesn't mean that you get a seat at the table to
make decision.
Any kind of decision within the Alabama football program. That's Freeze's deal. Those guys that were running so hard with Freeze, they got cute, and Freeze let them in, and, it was just a bunch of nonsense, running around, partying together, and all that. And so, yes, you're right, Blake. You need a certain group to help drive things, but you can't allow them to do anything football-wise. So if Auburn hires Kevin Steele, I just shake my head.
$25 million mistake.
Yeah, and it very well could be. Again, he could nail the offensive coordinator hire. Florida's always going to have players. It's like Ed. Ed stumbled on a win this past weekend. I mean, with all the talk about what LSU didn't have, people were acting like they were going to run out of the tunnel and look like Swanee. I mean, I'm watching the game on Saturday night. I'm like, LSU looks like they've got dudes. I mean, they've got players. But Kevin Steele would have to absolutely nail the offensive coordinator position. Now, the Rebels and the Dogs that are listening, you want them to hire Kevin Steele.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're an Ole Miss or Mississippi State, or I don't think Kiffin and Leach are necessarily thinking about it right now. They have too many things on their plate. But if you're a fan, I'm a fan.
Anyone in the SEC.
If they hire Kevin Steele, I may have to go to 111% just to get through the year.
It's just too difficult to continuously make the correct hire at OC if you're not an offensive guy
or
as a
if
head
you're not
coach.
asking for help.
Well, either way, even if you're asking for help, it's still hard to make the right hire every time. I just don't think coaches are not ingrained to look at things that way and analyze. Like, we're just not an analytical sport yet all the way through.
Right.
And so you have at 9 out of 10 coaches go with what they're familiar with, what their tree is, who's in their tree. And so it sets up for a recipe for disaster.
I guess my point is there's plenty of really, really, really good OCs out there to hire.
Then why aren't they all hired in the SEC?
Because guys hire their friends.
Exactly. So at the end of the day,
or what they're like Kirby Smart is a perfect example. Kirby hires who makes him comfortable. Will Muschamp hires who makes him comfortable. And that doesn't work. Jeremy Pruitt with Jim Chaney. Now, he just lost the best offensive coach on his staff.
Correct.
By the name of Chip Long.
Yep.
And he's now the offensive coordinator at Tulane.
I like this. Kevin Steele gets spurned at Auburn, goes to Florida as DC.
Now, this weekend could be a big weekend. I know Bama's going to score, but the question is how much? Could be a big weekend for Todd Grantham. Not that Todd won't get a job in 5 minutes, but we'll see. The Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by RPT and Rick's Pro Truck. #1 Jeep truck accessory stores in Mississippi. RicksProTruck.com. Detillier, 830.
Entergy Mississippi is committed to providing affordable, reliable, and clean power to Mississippians for generations to come. So we're taking steps to make it easier for our customers to self-generate solar electricity and incorporate solar into our power grid. The Mississippi Public Service Commission approved net metering for Entergy Mississippi solar users in 2016. Since then, registered customers have received credit for excess solar energy sent back to the power grid. Entergy Mississippi operates the state's first utility-owned large solar project. Power generated and data collected from our 3 solar sites have helped determine how to further explore solar power. We're also studying the viability of community solar programs. This new concept enables customers to participate in larger solar farms as a community rather than installing solar panels on individual homes. Entergy Mississippi is dedicated to powering a brighter future with solar. Learn more at EnergyMississippi.com.
Oh, man. Have we set the edge yet this morning? I feel like we did.
The New Balance discussion put the tone on the table is all I'm saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt about that. New Balance, baby. Holy moly. Our show is powered by Adidas.
3-Stripe
Life. Blakey Blakester's got on an Adidas pullover that I gave him.
It's warm. Well,
it's a cool pull. I mean, all the stuff they send us is awesome.
Pretty nice.
I'm wearing their socks. They're very warm. Live in the Bank Plus studio, Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. That's right. It's Christmas time. Adidas, adidas.com. Awesome shoes and performance gear for you. At South Carolina, you know, that's a reach in what they did with Shane Beamer, and I like Shane, but that's a mega major reach. And the fact that Beamer felt like he needed to go back and coach tight ends for Oklahoma, I think that's ridiculous. I would have flown in with a bag, and you got to stay. I don't mean a bag of cash, but he may need that too for recruiting. But I'm talking about a bag, you know, something to change into. Of course, they'll give you plenty of South Carolina Gamecock gear. But I know it's only a few days, but every day counts. And, I mean, who cares about tight ends? I mean, let's just be. I mean, you're the tight ends coach. That's like the running backs coach.
You're not even a coordinator. That's what's crazy.
Just, it made no sense. So that was a head scratcher. I don't know what Auburn's going to do. Are they going to land a name guy like Freeze, Sark, Napier? Would they even consider Brom? I don't know. Matt Campbell. I'm not sure.
The Sarkisian one is interesting because the BetOnline AG has odds out, and he's 14-1. He's way down the list.
You said Freeze is one?
Freeze is number one. He's 2-1 on the.
Okay, so maybe Freeze does come out of this and get maybe Sexton talks the boosters / Alan Green, the AD at Auburn, who played baseball at Notre Dame under Maneri. Maybe Sexton / Freeze talk them into this, Blake. I mean, look, once Freeze gets you one-on-one, he's going to be great in an interview, whereas we're kind of questioning whether Billy Napier is or not, and I don't know for sure, but
it seems that way.
We could ask
what we've
John
seen.
Cohen.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll call in and let us know if Billy Napier's a good interview.
I'd give anything to get a tell-all story from an AD who's like the hiring process of college football.
Yeah.
I'd love to just sit there on the windowsill and just watch him go through all that. It'd be amazing.
I'd like to see you sit on a windowsill.
Well,
and
I was thinking like metaphorically, but I understand.
Okay. All right, back to where we were going. If Freeze gets the opportunity to get in front of Alan Green and a couple of boosters,
he's getting the job.
Sold.
100%.
So I don't know if that's already happened or if that could happen or if that's not, you know, but the last thing you want, not the last thing, but if you're Auburn and you're really not planning on doing that, but
if you interview him, he's coming.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be good, man. He's going to be good.
Well, he's going to point to,
and then Jimmy is playing he's playing all his clients to either get a bump.
Cristobal just got that reaffirmation from Oregon, and now he's in the Pac-12. I don't think Cristobal's going anywhere. That's
Why
too good
would
a
you
job.
leave a crappy conference where you're the most committed school?
Yes, and the second best recruiter. third. I don't know where they fall behind USC.
I actually think they have now edged past Southern Cal, but either way, you're right. Let's just say they're tied for number one.
1 or 2 at worst.
Southern Cal and Oregon. And Cristobal's recruiting like Saban.
Yes.
SEC style.
Yes.
I mean, he's going to get.
And you have Joe Moorhead.
He's getting guys to
what
fly 3,000 miles across the country to go to Eugene, Oregon. And while Nike and Phil Knight is cool, Eugene's a rural town in Oregon. I mean, so to get a kid to jump on 2 planes out of South Florida to go to Oregon, but let's just be honest, you're not just offering a Scally, but
no,
Cristobal's throwing down SEC style.
You're flashy, you have Nike money, and you have a gateway to the college football playoff if you can just not screw up against teams that you're probably out recruiting by 20 spots most of the time. It made no sense when Cristobal's name was mentioned. I think Moorhead's out there going, "Oh, this is how it's done. I got it now." Okay. I competed against these cats for 24 months and somewhat held his own, but now he's been around Cristobal and he's like, "Oh, this is how you land 4-star recruits from 7 states away." Okay, I got this now. Live in the Bank Plus studio, Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, is brought to you by Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. Any age, any sport, any injury, they've got you covered. Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. New surgery center and clinic, Lakeland Drive, Flowood, built state-of-the-art and built for and around the patient, you. MississippiSportsMedicine.com. Detillier coming up next. We're discussing Auburn, how that could impact Ole Miss, Mississippi State. Who knows? If Freeze gets the job, boy, I mean, overnight they become a major threat for anybody. Well, he's the only one that affects your signing class.
Could. Sarkisian. Sark is so good as a play caller, and he's gotten into that whole adaptation thing. How do I say this? There's still maybe some concern there, but he's very talented. He understands how to recruit too. Napier, I just don't know. I mean, is he just going to hang here for a while and pull something weird and eventually get the job?
Which is LSU, right?
Yeah, I guess LSU or
Texas.
Maybe he thought Herman was going to get. Now Herman and Harbaugh are. I mean, I'm not saying he'd be in for Michigan, but
I'm not done with the Harbaugh thing. Are we sure?
Well, they're not going to fire him. He's going to have to take a job.
Yeah, the NFL has yet to have Black Monday,
so they're Jim Harbaugh gets to stay if he wants to. And the question is, like you just said, does he want the Detroit Lions job? Does he want the Atlanta Falcons job? Does he want the whatever job?
Houston's still open. Obviously,
right.
None of those guys have been hired.
Deshaun, Matt Ryan, Matthew Stafford. These are quarterbacks you can win with.
Jets will have Trevor Lawrence. That job should be open. Anthony Lynn and the Chargers, I think he's going to fired. So there's going to be a lot of NFL movement. And Harbaugh is obviously the biggest college name to be associated with the NFL.
Yes, because Urban, we get the... Unless Urban surprises us after not wanting the Texas job and goes to the NFL, it sure looks like Urban Meyer's just enjoying TV life.
It's a good gig, a lot less stress.
Yeah. Los Angeles, Manhattan Beach.
All your coaching decisions are right when you're sitting in the studio.
And you know what? He does a really good job. As good a job as Mac Brown did on TV, and he was good. Because Mac is warm and friendly, and, he's kind of got a presidential thing to him. You kind of move closer to the team. You didn't think Urban would have the chops. He's really good at ESPN doesn't have anybody as good as their team. They've just been doing it longer. The Fox analysts and personalities trump game days. Kirk Herbstreit trying to make everybody happy. Desmond Howard, not interesting. Pollock, not interesting. Reese just drives the train, and Reese is talented, but he's not there to bring a strong opinion. Whereas Urban Meyer, Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart, and the crew, they're just fun. Even though Joel Klatt's wrong on a lot of what he says, he's got some personality to him. And I don't really see that, Blakey Blakester, with ESPN's college guys. But I told you I'd only watched about 30 minutes of game day this year. What does that say about me?
You're not committed.
I'm not committed?
Mm-mm. You don't care about it.
Signing day may make me go from 110% to 111%. How much time do I have between now and midnight? 12, 15 hours? 15
Something
and a
like
half
that.
hours?
Something like that.
I may make the move today. We've already set the edge for the state of Mississippi, and we're going to have Mike Detillier on. He'll talk about the shoe game and the Saints and all that kind of jazz. So we're looking forward to that. The Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by Eye Care Professionals, Dr. Kirk Jeffries, blade-free LASIK, cataract surgery. Eye Care Professionals, Dr. Kirk Jeffries, Eye Care Professionals on Lakeland Drive. Detillier next. Hey, Kessler Prime has the best steaks in Mississippi and an amazing bourbon and wine selection. At Kessler Prime in the Renaissance, they also have 6 private dining rooms that seat anywhere between 12 and 100 people at Kessler Prime in the Renaissance. So, treat yourself to a bone-in filet, a ribeye, or a New York strip at Kessler Prime in the Renaissance, and go to KesslerPrime.com to make a reservation. So this Auburn thing's wild. The president wants a national search, and yet there's this group. I love emotional boosters. There's this group that's just hell-bent on is it Kevin Steele? It's all of a sudden like I lost his name there for a second. I've got a lot of wacky stuff going on in my brain. Good morning. Welcome in. The SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by USA Pawn for all your tools, electronics, and firearms. USA Pawn's mega store. I-55 South McDowell Road. USAPawn.com. Go see the Pawn Boss. Nick threw up a funny picture yesterday with USA Pawn. That was pretty good. Live in the Bank Plus studio, Out of Bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Our guests join us on the Abita Andy Gator guest line. We welcome in our friend Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. And it was a heck of a weekend for Mike D in Louisiana. So LSU with a big win over a crazy game down in Gainesville. And then Saints Eagles, you know, it is what it is. That happens every now and then, especially when you've won 9 in a row. But Mike, let's start with LSU. They needed something good to happen. It looked like maybe they were in disarray a little bit, the program. Go down and get a big win. What was your big takeaway from the W down in Gainesville?
Well, one, didn't look like Florida came to play early.
No.
To be honest with you, I think they thought, man, this is easy. They did see some of the game film of LSU, and I could understand why that gave them a lot of overconfidence. But listen, the one thing O has always preached, and that is about if you're going to put on that uniform, you're going to play hard for me. And LSU played, they gave it everything they had, a bunch of freshmen and sophomores, and they played good football. The young freshman, Max Johnson, came through for them at quarterback. They were able to run the football, which had been erratic all season long. And then they came up with the big plays. Certainly Elias Ricks' interception for a score. You had just a couple of crazy things happen where the ball bounces off the helmet of a player and they get an interception in the red zone. And then I've never seen a game influenced by a shoe. And, my thing about it is, I said this in the post game, man, at least he should have pulled off both of them. At least he'd have had a pair, But that's the craziest thing. We talked to Pete Jenkins last night, and Pete's been in this longer than I have. He's like, I had never seen nothing like that. Never. Like I said, I was like Pete. I didn't realize what had happened. I just saw the flags getting thrown. And I did see the other Florida player hit the guy in the helmet. Just almost like you would kind of smack somebody a little bit. And so I knew something had happened, but I didn't realize it until later that he had thrown a shoe, and kid kept it alive. And Cade York, man, 57-yarder, the longest in LSU history, and then to have, and I didn't see that either, to be honest. I just heard it that it went through, and then Florida's kicker missed the long field goal for them. So. That was a big victory for LSU. The program needed it. They needed a jump start, and it gave them a little bit of confidence moving forward. We'll see what happens against Ole Miss, because that secondary has been really riddled all season long. And, if you can get back to, some of the guys that you didn't have this week, it might be interesting. And great battle between, two guys that know each other real well, and certainly in Ed Orgeron and Lane Kiffin. I know before Ed, right after he took the job, he told me, I'm pretty sure we're going to get Lane here unless he gets a head coaching job. And I said, well, what's the chances of that? And he was like, well, I think it's 50-50. But, it became a lot more than 50-50, get the head coaching job. And so, interesting, a battle between two guys who know each other very well. And Lane was really, when Lane got the job at USC, Ed was the first hire. So,
wow.
They got a little history between the two of them there.
Yeah, and I want to say when Lane was hired at Tennessee, Ed was his first hire, I think, Mike.
I don't know if he was the first hire, because if you remember, Lane, when he hired him, Ed was on the Saints staff.
Oh, okay.
And Ed went through a couple weeks of thinking about, do I want to? I knew he was going to go back to college football. That the pros weren't for him, and so I knew that he would head back to college football. He had a couple other offers at that time to go back to college football. And then both of them, Lane and Monty, went talk to him right before New Year's that year when Lane got the job.
Right.
And they met
down at
somewhere
his
in
beach
Florida.
house, right?
Somewhere
house?
in Florida.
Okay.
And that's when he texted me, hey, I'm headed to Tennessee.
Okay. Mike Detillier on the Abita Amber guest line. Mike, have you spent some time around Lane? I mean, how would you describe his personality?
I haven't spent a lot of time around him. I know a lot about him from Ed, and, Ed's always thought that he had one of the most fertile offensive minds in the game, that, he could come up with things that you can look at film and say, hey, look, and that's going to work this week. And, Ed's deal is, well, what if they do this or do this defensively? He's like, I'm not worried about that. I know it's going to work. And so Ed was like, he was superbly confident, supremely, I guess maybe is the best term, confident in what he did, and that he was going to come up with an offense that was going to give you a lot of issues. And that's certainly been the case here at Ole Miss. That, man, listen, he's got teams on their heels most of the time, and it's he kind of picks and chooses what he wants to do. One of the things Ed has told me this spring about him is that I think he'll be try to be a little bit more patient with the running game. I think that was one of the things Ed had always said. Listen, he knows the passing game as well as anybody, but you got to be a little bit more patient with your running game, and so that's going to come in time. Where, boy, if you got people that you can run the football effectively with that passing game, you giving people a lot of issues, and he's got to fix the defense where you're giving up that many points I'm not concerned about yards. To me, yardage is overrated today. You're going to give up yardage 20 to 20. It's what you do in the red zone. Can you stop people? And that's becoming a bigger and bigger deal. And I know even for, say, at LSU in Alabama or Florida, one of the things they stress now is to find players that can make those big plays in the red zone. That you're going to give up that yardage today. That's just the way the game is built. But you got to squeeze them and force them to kick field goals. So personality, he's got quite the wit, and he likes to put a little bit of a needle in sometimes in people, and there's a good separation in age between the two of them, but they always got along real well.
Okay.
And so it's just a kind of a combination with the two. And Ed trusted him that he would have handed his offense over to Lane had Lane not got the head coaching job. So the personalities, even though they're different, they sort of run parallel to one another. Because that's sort of like that, too. If you get to know him, he's got quite the wit. And Lane don't have the stories Ed had because, he didn't live the life Ed lived. I find even though they're different, there are similarities between the two on just how they handle life. Ed's always turned the page. I'm not going to dwell back. Now, he might look back at it and say, damn, I wish I'd have done this differently. Or I should have handled that a certain way and I didn't. But he's not going to dwell on it because he's always felt, and even at a younger age, the more I look at what I messed up, the more it frustrates me today. But I can't do anything about that mess up. I can only handle the present. And I think Kiffin is similar. I can't do anything about what happened, me leaving Tennessee and what happened with the Raiders. I can't do anything about that. What happened at USC? I got to move on. And for some guys, they have selective memory. And I think that's where both of them are the same, that they can sort of put aside what's happened bad in their life and move on to the next chapter. Some people can't. Bo, I'm just telling you, I've been around people that they still dwell upon stuff that happened 15, 20 years ago, like it happened yesterday. That's not the case with Ed or with Lane.
Mike Detillier on the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone. When you look, so do you think Lane would consider going back to the NFL? Do you think
yes.
that? Okay.
Because I think that's his long-term goal. I think he'd like to go back to the NFL. No matter what, I think that frustration, and you'd have to have been there, I guess, with the Raiders to see how much dysfunction was going on. You had an older owner who had enjoyed unbelievable success in the past, but he was controlling. That was the one thing with Al. No matter what, he's always been a controlling figure behind the scenes. And so I've always felt that Lane would like to give that another shot one day. I just think that the money that's involved, you don't have to – you're recruiting, but it's not 24/7. You know what I mean? Today's recruiting is unbelievable, what these college coaches go through. And I've heard it from so many coaches, and it's all the same, that you got to call these recruits basically every day. Because if you don't, the first thing you hear from you is, hey, why didn't you call me yesterday? I had one LSU assistant coach tell me that, he was after a recruit, and still after him, apparently. And he said, I missed the day that I couldn't get in touch with him. For whatever reasons. He said, but the next day when I called him, his first comment is, "What, you forgot about me?" He's like, okay, I missed one day, But he said, I talked to him for like 5 straight months every day. I missed one, and that was the first comment. Like he said, not if he was pulling my leg, if he was just sort of messing with me, I don't know. But he said, that's the world we live in. In the NFL, yeah, you have the free agency part of things, but it's not that constant with recruiting that I see. Even a couple weeks ago, to visit Ed to get him to sign some things for a charity here on the Bayou, and his comment is, they still got people that want my autograph? I'm like, yeah. I sat in on they call it the Power Half Hour, where they call assistant coaches and head coaches in high school. And, the assistants call them, and Ed finishes off the conversation with the head coach or the assistant coach. And it's amazing to watch. I counted 34 either head coaches or assistant coaches in 35 minutes that they talked to. Yeah, I mean, I was just amazed at that. How quickly, they on the phone with him, they hand it to Ed. He talks to him for a few minutes for whatever time frame and hands it, and they hand him another cell phone. It was constant. And so you got to do that stuff every day with recruits, with
that sounds coaches. Terrible.
Man, that
terrible.
Is, and the other part about it is that's not even that's guys that's not even on your team. This isn't part of game planning or dealing with injuries or routine what goes on in college football. This is you trying to get in a new group of players. And I guess that's why, despite everything that's happened, LSU's with a top 5 recruiting class this year. Now, we'll know more tomorrow, but I'm just amazed at that, of what you have to go through. And it's just not 1 month or 2 months. You do this for years on a recruit. It's the relationship you build with the family, with the high school coach, with the player. And I could see why a guy like Matt Rule says, you know what, I got enough of it. I'm headed to the NFL.
Right.
And I think that'll happen to Lane one day. I think you'll get an opportunity to be a head coach in pro football.
Yeah, he feels more NFL. He feels like a guy that could make that jump. Mike Detillier on the Abita Amber guest line. You're listening Out of Bounds on 105.9 The Zone. Let's switch gears, Mike, and go to the Saints. What is the latest as far as what you're hearing on Drew Brees and his health?
What we've heard is that basically he tried to throw last week and there was discomfort in his throwing, which isn't a surprise. We're talking about 11 broken ribs. That ain't healing overnight. I got a pal of mine who, he rides bulls for a living. Sort of grew up with him, and and he was like, well, I broke 3 ribs. I was back on a bull in 3 weeks. And my thing is, yeah, but the bull didn't try to run you over. That he's like, no, he didn't try to run me over, but he threw me pretty good when I busted it. But you're talking about 11 ribs on a 41-year-old man. That's not going to heal overnight, and so I would be surprised if he played against the Kansas City Chiefs. I really would. I just think that, that sort of thing. Why rush this? Don't you want him healthy for January? Yeah, you would like to get the number 1 seed, but my thing is, I want him healthy for January. I'm not worried too much about what's happening now. I still want to win the division, and that sort of thing. But my thing is, Drew Brees' health in January is much more important to me. So I'd be surprised if he played against Kansas City. We'll see what happens against Minnesota on Christmas Day. That may well be more of a target date. Now, the only thing with that is that's a short week of practice because you play Sunday and then you play again Friday. So that's a real short week of practice. But he did have some discomfort throwing the football. He says he's feeling much better. You can just see him pacing the sidelines almost like a tiger. I mean, he's up and down, up and down. Man, listen, he put some mileage on them sneakers, is all I can tell you. But he's like a caged tiger. I mean, up and down. He wants to play in the worst way, but you got to be smart about it. You got to be smart and understand that at his age, and you can get a few more W's and get yourself the NFC South. Mm-hmm. That you be real careful with him, putting him on the field, because the only way this team's going to the Super Bowl is if he's in the lineup.
Right.
They ain't going there if it's just Taysom Hill, believe me.
Yeah, so that doesn't sound like he's playing this weekend.
No, I'd be really. Now, again, they haven't said anything.
Sure.
But I think if you listen to the tone of Sean, even last night, and he sort of walked around the question, which he normally does. He don't answer nothing about health. And I'd always told him he'd be good in the federal government, but he really wouldn't, because most of those guys sort of leak things. No, Sean don't tell you nothing, man. I mean, zilch about an injury. So I just by the tone, it seemed to me that he's not expecting Drew to come back for Sunday again. Now, I think Drew wants to, because he knows, there's a lot of people's going to be watching that game. That would be sort of build, Brees, the old pops playing against the young buck, and Mahomes. And I think he's also seen that Kansas City Chiefs defense too. And so I think he thinks, man, listen, I can get in there and do a little bit of business against that defense. And what most likely will be a shootout type football game, but I'd be surprised if he played Sunday. Now, Christmas Day, that's a different story.
Yeah. I did not realize that Who Dat Nation was going to play on Friday, Christmas Day. That's awesome. Give me some football mid-afternoon.
This is the NFL's shoot the basically middle finger to the NBA and saying, okay, you've had it for all these years and no one's challenged you. We're going to challenge you. Yeah. And I think they want to see what type of ratings come out of this game between Saints Vikings, and if it's good, which I suspect it will be, you may likely see a doubleheader game in either next year or the following of NFL football on Christmas Day. I think they're going to challenge the NBA on Christmas Day.
Interesting. I like that. All right. Mike Detillier on the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone. Mike D, have a great week. We appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you, Bo. Appreciate it, bud.
At Mike Detillier on Twitter, WWL Radio TV New Orleans, Mike Detillier on the Abita Andy Gator guest line. That's a great beer, by the way. Abita Andy Gator. We've got a few of them in the fridge over there. And we've got a couple on the set if you're watching the show on YouTube. Search Out of Bounds Sports. Blakey Blakeser, this is interesting. Let's get back into the coaching hires. Did you realize that Tom Herman's buyout is $15 million? I did not.
It's a steal.
And then they'd have to pay an additional $10 million plus to buy out Herman's staff. This article on theathletic.com by it's either Andy Staples or Stuart Mandel. It is Andy Staples, Florida Gator grad, as he walks you through all these, buyouts that are being paid out. He makes a great point here. Tom Herman received a kind of vague vote of confidence Saturday from Longhorns athletic director Chris Del Conte. So, but if they stick to the plan here,
well, I think
he'll be back.
This is one of those where you get a vote of confidence because we couldn't get the guy we want, and we're not making a $35 million change for someone that we don't want.
Right.
To put it in perspective, Gus Malzahn is going to 15 and 10 is 25. So Gus Malzahn's buyout was only $3.5 million less than the entire Texas staff.
Holy Mary!
To put it in perspective.
Is Auburn going to mess this up?
Yes.
Are they going to get the Erkslavin Award of Excellence for December?
No, because they can't hire Shane Beamer.
Okay. All right, Kessler Prime's going to be in the next 20 minutes or so. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. The show is always brought to you by Juniker Jewelry Store, Highland Colony in Madison. Engagement wedding rings is Juniker. Juniker Jewelry Store, Highland Colony in Madison.
It's time for the Blue Health Minute, brought to you by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Mississippi, reminding you of the importance of your health. Your health journey begins with your annual Healthy You visit with your Blue Primary Care Network provider. You'll learn about your health numbers and overall health risks. You'll work together to create a wellness goal and set SMART goals. These can be focused on improving certain health numbers, exercise, nutrition, sleep, or self-care. You don't have to tackle them all at once. Start with one goal and go from there. This has been the Blue Health Minute with Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Mississippi's health and wellness expert team. For more healthy tips, follow us on Facebook or visit bcbsms.com.